Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is Superman Sons.
Paul, hey everybody.
How
I
you doing,
actually
Paul?
did this completely disconnected from what we were talking about earlier today, but
Yeah, in our chat.
I'll count it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For everyone that doesn't follow comic book news, Superman's son came out as bisexual in Tom Taylor's
Wild.
Superman comics. So, just an FYI, if you want to go check that out. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, way better now than I was this morning because this morning was ridiculous. Office-based jobs are designed to suck the soul out of your life.
Absolutely. And that's why I don't do office jobs anymore.
Drives me nuts. One thing that I don't know if we ever really talk about is what you actually do.
Yeah. I just manage, basically.
Really?
I just literally manage from home whenever on call and do errands for the fans. So yeah, it's like, and I don't even have to be like in an office. I used to do it in an office, but with this garbage times that we live in, we don't need to have to be in an office to stay safe. So
True.
And I'll be an Airbnb manager pretty soon. So
Ooh, okay, cool.
yes, finishing some projects there, waiting. And anything other than your stressful morning, Paul?
Well, we'll have a lot more to talk about on our next episode with what we've been playing, because I've been playing a lot of things, but I don't want to get into those because that's not what we're here for. Besides that, just having fun. All my family's birthdays are this month.
Ooh, they all got stacked in October.
Yeah, well, just yesterday this weekend we had one dinner, two dinners for birthdays and one regular birthday party that was around lunchtime. So there were three things just to handle for that, and we have basically my wife's brother and brother and stepdad, and I have my brother, mom, and dad all in October.
So they're all Halloween babies.
And her sister and her father.
When is your birthday, Paul? I don't think I know that.
December 3rd.
Nice.
Yeah. So mine is
you're a Christmas baby
that received his birthday and Christmas gifts inside one, and we're like, this is both, and I'm like,
ooh, that sucks. That's like, I always feel bad for the December people because I know there's people that there are families that like to feel they were blessed to do 2 in 1, and that kind of sucks.
Sometimes I could leverage it because I would get one larger gift rather than 2 smaller gifts. So I could sometimes leverage my way through like 2 games, or like I think I've gotten like full systems. I think my PC out of that. But I work at it. Last year my big TV. That was my big Christmas / birthday gift. So
and an overdue gift on top of that.
Yeah. Going back to try hooking up my parents' old Sharp Aquos 42-inch TV to watch The Mandalorian was a nightmare, because not only is it not a smart TV, it's barely a TV. It's like we were watching that sucker from across an entire room, and it's just like tiny, and I'm like, yeah, so you can't see it right now, but all these people in the back have Mandalorian helmets. Just trust me on that.
Is it that bad, really? Wow.
We actually could not tell that when Din was walking through the hallway initially in the second episode or whatever, that the whole rest of the crew was also Mandalorian. It wasn't until later that I got to see that with them, but it's fun watching that for the first time with them,
getting to experience it.
Yes, and
a really good show.
I was worried I would get bored seeing it for the 3rd time now, but I'm still like, yes.
Are you gonna keep watching it with them, or did you stop at those 3 episodes?
They don't watch anything by themselves, so I basically have to hold their hand and watch it with them. I'd be
interested to see what do you think of episodes 4, 5, and 6 rewatching them, because those to me are the weaker ones.
Oh, absolutely.
It then picks up in the last 2 in that first season. So
I think out of those 3, 6 is probably the strongest, 4 the second strongest, and 5 being the weakest.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking forward to that one, but we're watching them in groups of 3. with the only exception being the last 2 episodes we're gonna watch together. And I'm trying to like curate it well enough because the first 3 episodes are like a really solid movie by themselves. And then we're just gonna watch the next 3, get them out of the way, probably next couple of weeks or so.
Yeah, and then the last 2 are their own movie too.
Yeah, so they might as well be, and they're a little longer as well. So I'm really liking watching them react to it from more or less scratch. They knew a couple of details, but they're very not knowledgeable about like and what's going on, and all right, the Empire's gone, right? And I'm like, yes mom, the Empire's already gone. And they're like, but where does Finn show up? And I'm like, that don't even think about that.
That's way later.
It's that whole conversation, but honestly I get a kick out of it. So I live for like catching them up with anything Star Wars, anything Marvel, anything DC. And it's like, all right, welcome to my TED Talk. Here's what's happened for the last 5 years in the media industry.
I'm glad my parents are very in tune with the MCU. Like, and they actually rewatched all those movies by themselves back in quarantine when we were all separate. And I don't have to be doing the TED Talk, kind of like explaining, because that can drive me nuts sometimes.
My mom will rewatch some of them. Like, she loves the original Iron Man and she loves the Avengers movies and stuff, but my dad will not waste his time on any of it, and they all forget it the second they finish watching it anyway. But anyway, that's
some of them are pretty disposable. Yeah.
Have you been doing anything interesting?
Well, I went to do a health check last Friday, and some slightly concerning results. I got high cholesterol, so I need to get that crap down ASAP. So already taking supplements and cutting fat and grease to try to get cholesterol levels down, increasing more intensity to our hikes also. So I'm feeling hella tired right now because now I had been evading the actual climbs of the hike. I had gotten stuck in just doing like, the flat ones. You don't sweat as much, but today I was like, you know what, let's do this tall one. And I went on that tall one. I'm like, I barely have any breath now. But my shirt was sweaty. I was sweating like a hooker in church.
Lord.
Yeah, so thanks Sully from Uncharted for that line. And but other than that, I'm just gonna be taking care of that. Thankfully, like, they told me that by having done that health check now, I'm at the point where I was like, you got it just in time to know that you were teetering before things start going bad for you. So hopefully I'm gonna be intensifying that, trying to get into some like more controlled eating and all of that. And I hope every week I'm starting to see the result, because I want to be healthy. I want to be alive. I want to reach my 50s. I want to reach my old age. I don't want to like be suffering too early. So hopefully that will work. And the good thing is that I usually don't like getting into diets, because if you're the only one doing it in a home when no one else is doing it, it's very hard. My parents are also going to try to do that, because also their health came in a little not too bad, but also at the point where it's like, it could be better. So being able to all coach each other and be like, we're all in this together, kind of eating the same things, that's going to help a lot. So and then other than that, just chilling, playing games. We did our Let's Plays that you can check out. We have done 2 so far. We're going to do 3. But at the end of 2, I asked Paul if he was going to be able to do it on Thursday. And that's when, that's usually his off day with his wife. And then on Friday, we were going to do it. But then I had to go do the health check because I was feeling weird the day before. And then I then went on workout in the afternoon, and then we ended up not playing. And then your weekend, you had your birthday. So potentially today we will do part 3, where we're now entering. But by the way, we're playing Halo Combat Evolved right now, and we've done the first 6 missions, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
We just finished 343 Guilty Spark, which was the Flood introduced mission. Yes.
So now we're starting the next one with the worst possible level, the library. So that should be fun.
Hopefully we get that out of the way, and then we get to the good stuff again.
Will I keep killing you with grenades?
Absolutely.
Maybe.
I'm just convinced that's gonna happen. So I'm gonna be looking over my shoulder every 3 seconds, like.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to shout frag out. It's exhausting doing that, especially because the gameplay loop of Halo is the 30-second loop of shooting melee grenades. Yeah. So it's like it's part of the game design for you to always keep using those 3 things. So constantly saying that, I'm gonna run out of breath.
Right.
So,
and it's kind of my fault as well, because I like to play games as cinematically as possible. That means I'm gonna rush straight in, melee, swing, fire wildly, and throw grenades just to get something cool looking funny out of it.
That's why you had such a bad time playing Stranger of Paradise, but I'll save that chat until the next one. So Paul, we got a bevy of news this week, thankfully, and I keep being thankful about us doing recaps on Mondays, because we don't miss anything from a previous week now. So we feast. Yes, we definitely feast, and we can chat about that. So press X
for some news.
All right, Paul, before I dive into the big news from this past week, I wanted to kind of separate some follow-ups from some of the things that we talked last week.
Okay.
The GTA remasters, once again. Now, the GTA remasters have finally been confirmed by Rockstar, which hilariously were leaked by their own PC launcher before they were like, F it, we're saying it now.
Yep.
Officially named Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy - Definitive Edition. I'm only going to call them GTA remasters. F that name. The trio of Rockstar classics is going to give the games a cleaner, modern makeover, and it's been released as a commemoration of GTA 3's 20th anniversary this year. GTA, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Halo 1 are 20 years old this year. Can you believe that? Nothing will date you. Nothing will date you more than hitting that milestone. However, as an addendum to when the games were supposed to come out, based on the South Korean rating suggesting a shift to 2022 for all platforms that we read in the previous episode, Rockstar said this trilogy is coming up later this year without confirming a solid release date. In case this thing is coming in hot, expect the trilogy to be released no later than December.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is the Cyberpunk / Halo Infinite / Immortal / Far Cry 3 / Rainbow Six Siege, kind of getting it in right at the nick of time, if it ends up happening. Yeah. As an aside, the existence of this remaster also means that Rockstar announced they're planning on removing any old version of these games currently available on digital services.
Oh, they're gonna do that route. Oh,
yeah. So in case you want to keep a digital version of the games in their classic form, so the trilogy of games are available as PS2 classics on PlayStation right now. Go buy them now. Just in case you think that the remaster is gonna maybe mess up what you think, you should buy them now, because they're gonna apparently want to try to force this new remaster as like the only way to play them.
Doing a George Lucas special edition now.
Yes, and to me it's like, that's buyer beware for me, because those games don't hold up well like control wise right now.
Yeah,
I mean, you you lock on with R1 and shoot with circle in one of them, so it's like it was until GTA 4 that they started to feel a little bit more modern. So I'll be curious what people say whenever these release, and if they modernize controls or not, because if they do that, then fair game, take the old ones out. I mean, unless you just want to be a purist.
That's my biggest statement, because like one reason is, of course, you can control the kind of controversialness in certain things, say stuff that didn't age very well. You can kind of remove it or kind of censor it. Gives you full control over what your brand is now putting out there. Other problem, of course, is controls, because I tried going back to some of those. San Andreas is probably my biggest example that I can remember, and I couldn't get past like the first couple missions, because I was just like, this isn't fun.
The bike section.
And I tried playing it on PC, where the controls were still in like their initial forms, so I'm like, what button do I hit on PC? And I just couldn't get past it, even with like the possibility of awesome mods and stuff. I was just like, I'm not dealing with this. Anyway, I'm mixed, I think, on this. I like the idea that they're just gonna like, hey, we're just gonna put this back out there. The problem is they're probably just going to control the heck out of the pricing, and they're going to try gouging us.
Oh yeah, their rumors is that the next gen versions are going to be $70 for all 3 of these. So,
gosh, I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
I'm
It's a
gonna wait till
sale.
that's like $15 or something. But yeah,
I might buy it at like a first sale if the work they did is worth it. Because that's the thing. We haven't seen gameplay. We haven't seen video of this. The way they announced it was doing a bunch of the still images, kind of up rest, that were like in the covers. So
right.
it's definitely it's just wait and see to see what kind of work they did. If the work is minimal, hell no. So
right.
So yeah, what else? Were you gonna say something else?
No, that was just about it. Just like you mentioned that if they put in work and it looks nice, better textures or whatever, then like maybe. But if it's just like, oh, it's now in like 4K, but it's literally just the same thing, then I'm like, get this out of my face. So go ahead. What you were gonna say? Yeah,
the era of the lazy remaster is kind of done. So and following up for also one of the stories from last week, following last week's report from BGC about the Konami resurgence and the potential Metal Gear Solid 3 remake from Virtuos, BGC reports one of Virtuos employees did confirm they're working on a big, high-budget remake without explicitly saying what game. You can basically connect the dots. BGC's reporting has been solid, so by them, solid. And if someone said they're working on a remake, it's like it's pretty much confirmed. So can't wait to see it. Hopefully, it has the quality of the pachinko machine cutscenes.
But then, like, dude, if they can put the story of 3 with the gameplay of 5, I am sold.
That would be, and the story is the same. Sold. And if the story is the same, I tell you, that's gonna be one of the greatest games of all time.
Oh,
because 3 is that.
Give us like a full jungle, like SOCOM Navy SEALs style to slither through. I would deal with a 2-week boss battle with that old man sniper if we got something like that.
Oh man, that's such a great boss fight. Then especially how you can cheese it. Do you know that you can kill him before the boss fight? Like if he's in his wheelchair and you shoot him, like when the first cutscene that he pops up.
Yes, and then his wheelchair like explodes and flies at you.
Yeah, flies at you. It's so fun.
That, and then you can also kill him by moving forward your game clock. I never did that,
and me
because
neither,
I always thought that was like cheating, but
it's so cool. It's like that's I think the roots of Kojima adding a lot of variety and sandboxy elements into something was teased there in the end battle, just in how many ways you can approach it. True. So man, being able to like play that with like modern controls and being able to crouch walk, the thing they added on Metal Gear Solid 4, that just doing that is gonna fix so much of like what ails some of that gameplay. So moving on now to the real stories of this week. Number 1, the gaming industry has been plagued in recent years over the abundance of crunch and long hours plaguing game development, with many studios vowing to do better with work hours while others don't change a thing. Look at Naughty Dog. Last week, a notable studio has announced a massive shakeup to their studio's work hours, with former Deus Ex and now Guardians of the Galaxy developer Eidos Montreal announcing they are adopting the 4-day work week mantra that you see in some places like in Europe, with the studio capping itself at 32 hours a week, citing the desire to increase the studio's efficiency without compromising their employees' well-being. You can read a bunch of that stuff, like what other things are changing, like cutting off team meetings and all of that at their FAQ that they release with all this. Here's the best part. Salaries are not going to be reduced to accommodate the new schedule. How this will now impact Eidos game development remains to be seen. Paul, you live in the capitalistic nation that is the United States that squeezes you out of all the work. What do you think of a studio up in Montreal like adopting the 4-day work week?
I'm going to start off by saying it's fantastic. I, being a business major myself, I've gotten very close proximity to this exact work week that has killed so many, not just companies, but people, literally and figuratively, along with their lives. And I know you have also experienced a lot of that as well. My thoughts on this: I really hope this starts a new trend, because so many people are so obsessed with the concept of the hours equaling work put into something, and that's not what it means. What you're doing when you're adding like 60 to 100-hour work weeks is it's like you're trying to wring out a sponge, and you're just putting too much in there. You're trying to brute force your way through something when I like the phrase that says hire a lazy person because they're going to find the most efficient way to do something. I am one of those people. If I can find a more efficient way to give myself free time, I will. But I'm also going to get the work done by doing that. So
Exactly.
what we need is people doing stuff like this, where it's 4 days and 32-hour work weeks. What they're going to do is they're going to find more efficient ways to do the things that they're currently doing right now. Maybe at first it may take a little while because it's an adjustment. That's just what happens when you change policies. That's not even related to it. What I fear is that people are going to see that initial drop in productivity and think, oh, it doesn't work, we're just going to switch back, or everybody else is going to double down on their previous models. But what I really want to happen is for Eidos Montreal to start this, commit to it, actually show progress, and that not just the progress of the company, but that their people are happier, there's less turnover, there's less burnout, their families are happier as well, and as you said as well, their salaries are not being touched. So if this helps like a positive and less toxic process, I really want other people to take over this whole new method and have things change for the better for the gaming industry and hopefully a lot of our capitalistic nature in this country.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
I think what's interesting is that all of this came out because they saw some efficiency while they were all working from home. They adjusted expected hours
Okay,
while
so
everyone
it's already
was.
because of that.
Yeah, and they noticed like their employees were happier with a more adjusted schedule. Obviously, when you're home, expecting the same amount of work that you would be expected to have while in an office space can be a little harder because there's like the lack of camaraderie with each other as all of you are working together. You're at home with your family, so you kind of have to keep in mind you don't want to take the family that's within your vicinity seeing you work, and that kind of helps because that usually some of the people that cite burnout in the gaming industry is how much sometimes they have to crunch and put in just the amount of hours beyond what's like expected from them because they just kind of want to get the work done, and it just leads to divorces, like complete mental health shattering. Like read some of Jason Schreier's reporting he did over like some big trouble developments like Dragon Age Inquisition, Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda, the old Bioware games, or even the story of the development of Uncharted 4, that game went through 3 years worth of development hell in 1 year to try to get that game out over all the trouble they had going. And one of the things that sometimes can be lost with the whole crunch thing is that in the art industry, it's very hard for you to sometimes get art done if you don't want to put like your all, because it's like something that's really passionate, like you're really passionate about something here. So what I do like about this is that at least the company, by capping the week like this, they're allowing they show that they're not the ones pushing for crunch. If anyone then wants to stay in and finish up more and more, that's not in the company, because the company is literally now giving them the out of like, you have a 3-day week, 3 days to rest.
Yeah.
Just work the other 4. I think that's what's cool. What I'm more interested now though is will this make will this impact Eidos Montreal ability to put out games quicker if you're cutting off that 1 day? But if all this did is like cut up on, because they're saying they're cutting off hour-long meetings that they would have weekly to probably 30 minutes, like Q&A sections, all of that. They're like they're pursuing efficiency here. So
because it doesn't sound like they're just one-to-one cutting a day and saying, all right, let's move on. They're, like you said, they're cutting unnecessary
things,
meetings. They're allowing for certain things. And one thing I did want to mention before you jumped in as well is when like the brain is always problem solving, whether or not you're working. The fact that they're able to give people 3 days rather than 2 to like rest, recover, and problem solve everything that they've been dealing with means that they're going to be fresher and be able to implement the things that they've been thinking about over that 3 days better than what we've seen from a lot of information mental health wise about 2 days not being enough for you to reset your body.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can continue.
In Europe, like I don't know where in Europe, but I have heard a majority of places in Europe have adopted the 4-day work, 3-day rest, and it has worked beautifully for them over there. So we'll see. Hopefully, this is like again the bastion of how things are done. But then the proof will be like Wednesday. Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out in like 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So
I thought it was already out.
No, Guardians of the Galaxy comes out on October 26th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know why I thought it was September.
No, it was always and it's gonna make its date.
Okay,
This has just been announced. So the result of Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever that game ends up being, you can't attribute this change to that game right now. You have to attribute it to what comes next.
Yeah.
If what comes out next turns out good, let's see. I'm hoping this Guardians game comes out good. And
I hope so as well.
and then and because they haven't released a dud, like Deus Ex Mankind Divided, good. It was good. Yeah. It wasn't the greatest, but it was good.
Yeah,
that's
fair.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider was good. Maybe not as good as Rise of the Tomb Raider, but it was a good game. True. So if they can still maintain a quality of good, maybe not like the very, very best, then maybe this will be worth it. We'll see.
Looking forward to it.
Number 2. Capcom has apparently decided to make the PC platform their focus platform moving forward. According to Video Games Chronicle, Capcom came to this decision because of their recent sales success on PC, with continuous sales from their most recent offerings even years past their original release. Think Resident Evil 7 and how long ago that was. And apparently that game has kept selling on PC. While this doesn't mean they're leaving consoles behind, it only means PC versions of games are going to receive more time and attention before trickling down to consoles now. Still interesting to see a prominent Japanese developer making this claim after being so entrenched, mainly on consoles and handhelds. What do you think of this?
This is very surprising to me, honestly. But I mean, I guess if you were reading the writing on the wall, it would make more sense. And I mean, just like you said, we're citing the sales of previous games still doing so well on PC is surprising to say the least. But like, who's out here still buying Resident Evil 7 on PC of all things? Like, I don't know what the deal is with that, but I think there's got to be a lot of correlation with deep sales and easy stuff to deal with on that. I mean, what was it? Vanquish was there was Platinum, but isn't that published by Capcom, or am I mistaken?
No, that was Sega. Sega did Vanquish.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking a lot of the other things that Capcom's been doing lately, I mean, Resident Evil and all the other things
Monster Hunter.
they've been doing. Yeah, Monster Hunter alone. Capcom's been crushing it with their recent releases just across the board being great for whoever's been looking for them. And I am, even though I haven't really bought into most of it besides like Resident Evil and I bought Monster Hunter World back when that came out, but I'm really proud of them for doing what they're doing right now, and I hope that they continue to do what they're doing.
Capcom, Capcom is last generation's greatest comeback story. This was a studio that near the end of the PS3 and 360 generation were just putting turds, like absolute turds. Think like Lost Planet 3, Resident Evil 6.
I was just thinking about it too.
Yeah, like
I wouldn't mind if they reinvigorated Lost Planet.
Yeah, because the first one was so good, and then that series just went down the shitter, and with 2 and 3, and just think about Capcom. Then after they released so many bad games, the initial like 3 years of that generation, they only put out Dead Rising 3 as an Xbox exclusive, and then also Dead Rising 4 almost 3 years later. And then from there on out, they were just a port studio. They were re-releasing the Resident Evil games. They were like, they remade their remake. The Resident Evil 1 remake was remade, and putting out like Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. It was like they were just they were just coasting by, being lazy. It wasn't until RD7 came out that it was like an original new entry, completely different, and then they went back to DMC with a DMC 5, because you even remember like the DMC reimagining
was
that
struggling after that.
Yeah, it was like that wasn't even them, that was Ninja Theory. They just like licensed the IP to them. They didn't even make that game, so they were just struggling. And then from Resident Evil 7 onwards, like DMC 5, Monster Hunter World, RE8, the RE2 remake, RE3 remake, and them actually putting so much work.
For VR now.
Yeah, so it's like Mega Man 11, Monster Hunter Rise.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Monster Hunter Rise was a big game for the Switch this year. That also has a PC version, interestingly, but not other consoles. So it's like you can cross save between a PC version and a Switch version, which is interesting. It's I would say, like, even though this may seem doom and gloom, here's the reality, Paul. Every game that's made is a PC game, no matter what. These new machines, like, yes, they have their SSD, blah, 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 blah. They're PCs. Since the PS4 generation onwards, like, everything now is like a PC. So now they're just basically making sure that the PC version is the best it can be, because there has been rough PC versions of things. So some PC versions not running well, not being compatible with the million permutation of PCs that are out there, because you have to code things really well for them to run. You can think about recently Deathloop. On PS5 it was excellent. On PC it was atrocious, apparently. So it's very hard to get a PC version right.
And I would dare say that if you want a series to last long enough, your most important thing is to make it run well on a PC. Because when you think about it, it doesn't really matter what console something comes out on. It's eventually, it needs to find its way to PC if it's going to last for very long.
Look at Halo. Halo now is like booming again, especially Halo 3 when it came out to PC. When it came out on PC, it's like I feel the PC is now the ideal platform for game preservation in a way. Yeah, because just look at the disaster that has been PlayStation with game preservation. We're gonna talk about that later. And compare that to how everything that you have bought in PC over PC, especially on Steam when Steam became a thing. And your library just keeps expanding and expanding, and then you get a better specs. If you build your PC, there's a chance for you to play those games better. It's a big adjustment, I will say. It's a big it's an expensive undertaking. That's the only problem. But the thing is that the rewards with how good some games can look, how great they can run, like the ability for you to have everything together. I can see what Capcom's thinking here. So
I could even say, like, if you even want to go the pirating route, what better way keeps series alive is emulation. And if you want something to run well, if it runs well in emulation, it's more likely people are going to want to go out and buy it. Because a lot of people, I mean, I know we talk about the whole idea of, pirating ruins industries and stuff, but in the end, if you really love something, people have that natural desire to go out and pay once they realize something's good.
I'm not against emulation at all if it's things that have been discontinued, like emulation.
That's another thing.
Emulation, I think, is the only way for some games to be alive. Like, that's why, like, to me, I have been following very closely the development of the PS3 emulation that has taken years to get right and running well, because the PS3 was a disaster of a console. Terrible. It's so intrinsically designed within itself that it's not compatible with the normal way someone would build a machine. And people have put some work into that thing. Like, I always keep track of how the Metal Gear Solid 4 emulation's going there, because again, that game's stranded on PS3 and now it's looking better. And that's why I'm glad Capcom is kind of taking this, because I just know that they're not gonna abandon consoles in a way. This will just make it easier for them to just trickle down, be like, okay, now let's scale this game now to what the specs of the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are. And if they still want to keep supporting the old decrepit consoles now, we can try to scale this one even lower for PS4 and Xbox One. They did that with RE8. So
I never would have thought companies like Capcom and Konami would be leading in bringing back old series that had recently been thought just never coming back.
And I bet you Konami looks at Capcom, and that's probably what's inspiring them. The thing is the problem is that Konami has been missing with the quality. I mean, look at
very much so.
eFootball continues to be an amazing meme factory. Do you see the Naruto run?
No, I just watched a couple highlights of people like popping in and out, getting goals and like jumping on an invisible body, and just weird stuff like that. But I guess I was more referring to the collections that they've been releasing lately.
Oh yeah.
Just being so solid. And like I actually went and do some research into how people have been thinking about this recent Castlevania Advance collection, and
people like it.
They're like across the board are like, this is fantastic. I'm really glad that I got this, because like I used to play these and now they feel fresh and all that stuff. But I mean, then you have somebody like me who used to be, or still is directionally challenged, and
you're getting better at Metroidvanias now, right?
Through those games, and then like I felt an addiction to be like, well, I'm not really doing anything, let me boot up Circle of the Moon, see what happens. And then I just like blast through this entire area, and I actually felt smart a couple of times by figuring out something that they wanted me to know that I didn't have to look up. And I was like, I actually figured this out. I figured out how this boss mentality is going on, his moveset, that I feel like I haven't been able to do that in years, honestly, because I'm a bit of an idiot.
if you want to like get better at direction, like Metroidvania is the greatest tool. Master that genre, you'll master everything, and how to like properly not get too lost and really pay attention to your environment. So yeah, Capcom, wishing you well with this new PC venture, because at least your PC versions have been good.
Amen.
Number 3, in the other side, like speaking of companies that are not doing well because they're not done being the most toned up gaming company of 2021, Ubisoft has announced another free-to-play game, now in the form of Ghost Recon Frontline, a game that takes their once venerable series into the tired, and I keep re-emphasizing that, tired Battle Royale genre. This marks now the 3rd free-to-play game announcement this year based on one of their existing core franchises. The first one was The Division Heartland back in May. Then Tom Clancy's XDefiant that was announced in July. And now this one, Ghost Recon Frontline. And just so you know how people feel about this new game, its reveal trailer already has amassed 13,000 dislikes, with XDefiant reveal trailer having 30,000 dislikes. Note that The Division Heartline doesn't have a proper reveal trailer yet, despite being announced technically first.
I have one previous question. Do we know if YouTube's still getting rid of dislikes on their videos?
You can see that dislikes plaster there still.
Or like, are they going to try to get rid of them at some point? I know they were going to.
They probably will, with seeing how people are making their feelings clear with this thing.
Yeah, because it's moments like this that I feel a little happy that we have dislikes, because it makes it very clear to the people that are posting it when something's wrong.
When it's not what people want.
Yes.
No one's going to Ubisoft's door and be like, hey, that Ghost Recon game, can you make a Battle Royale, please? Hey, can you grab all the Tom Clancy characters and put them in a hero shooter that looks like Call of Duty? Hey, Division Heartland, like, yeah, you have the Division 2 over there, but can you release something just like completely separate from the thing that you already have there? It's like, I am honestly astounded, like with capital A, how a company can just miss the mark and completely ignore their fan base over and over and over again. Happened in that company. I'm sorry, like, I like Ubisoft, or I used to really like them. I like what they used to put. They used to be the third party from like the big 3 that I championed the most, because they would pursue the actual variety. Yeah, and they had all those different franchises, and they like, even they were the first ones to go down the games as a service hole, but they were also one of the few that showed that if you took time to get it right, despite not launching well, then your series will just sprout and become big hits. Look at Rainbow Six Siege. That game was bad when it launched. They had a bunch of bad stuff, and it's one of their biggest successes because they kept at it. They kept tuning it. The Division, also another game that didn't launch well because that's looters. For Honor, another one, but they kept at them and they kept making them better. But now they're like, I feel they're probably gonna go under. If they're this desperate at pursuing the free-to-play market, I think that's a really worrying sign because
I'm concerned for sure. I agree. I have one little ray of hope that I want to point out that I really hope I'm right, is that all of these were made around the same time before our boy got fired.
Sorry,
yeah. Because as we know, like, he got fired and then they said they were going to start going in a different direction because his direction was the same game.
Homogenization with everything.
I want to believe that all of these were born through that, and they're thinking, okay, well, we got that kicked out. We're going, like, we still put a lot of effort and money into this, and Ubisoft is just sitting on money, maybe. So they're like, we're just going to throw these out there, let them fail or succeed, because you miss 100% of the shots you don't take and all that. So, like, hey, maybe we'll make a little money on them and not sink our cost. And then we'll move on after this wave is out with more things with the new creative director. That's what I'm hoping.
You have a good point, because game development takes time. Even a battle royale. Like, think
At
about
least, like, 3 years roughly.
Yeah, so, like, just to give an example, think about Apex Legends.
Yeah.
Respawn said that game started development around March 2017 when they played PUBG. And thought, this is interesting. What could we do if we try to put this in our universe? Took them around 2 years.
Yeah.
To get the thing in a proper shape where they can show it. And they also had the advantage that they showed and released it immediately. And now I'm realizing that that's probably the way to go with this battle royale. So you can't announce something in a genre everyone says is so tired, to the point where you even see the big mainstays of the battle royale genre, like experimenting with different modes. That's not the core thing. That's what people are playing within it. I see my brother, he doesn't like playing the normal battle royale mode anymore, and he plays competitively. He's like in tournaments and all of that. People are just tired of this, and it just feels like this trend chasing that's coming a little too late when everyone's just started. It's kind of like the trend chasing of the looter genre. Everyone saw Destiny take off, even though it had its problems, but it made money, it took off and all that. But it's a very hard genre to always consistently get right. Then you receive all these games years down the line when everyone had already moved on from the looters in a way. So it's like, this is how this feels, that this was all green lit in that 2019-2020 window. Gasco got fired or left / whatever, however it was, back in July 2020 when all of the shit hit the fan for Activision. So I can see that's how it happened, because you don't push this, like, especially knowing how game development is. So there's a ray of hope and crossing fingers that maybe it's like, I just hope all 3 of these games, with probably Division Heartland is the only one that I kind of want to see first, because one thing I did read, and because I heard that the Division fan base wasn't too up in arms in that one, is like, there was a mode in the first Division that came as DLC that they added as survival mode, that made the game actually really fun and interesting, that was different from its normal gameplay that people dug. They didn't bring that back in Division 2. Now they made it its own thing. So that's one that I kind of want to wait and see. But X Defiant, it's like the most crude, generic thing in the world. Like Ghost Recon Frontline just gives you
everything you need to know.
Exactly. The title and this Ghost Recon game, like when you look, it's a first-person battle royale thing, but it's like, how many of those we have already? And one that's just dominating with Call of Duty Warzone right now. And it's like, it doesn't look any different from anything I've ever seen. It's like, this Ghost Recon used to be the tactical stealth game. Rainbow Six was the tactical shooter. It's like, if Ghost Recon was all about like sneaking in, like properly aim, properly consider everything. And that, I don't think that's gonna translate to 100% battle royale. It's just insanity. And let's not forget, our dear Assassin's Creed is becoming a live service. That's why we're not gonna see it for the next few years now. But Valhalla will keep getting DLC support, for good or ill. Fuck Ubisoft. Number 4, Sony is testing the idea of game trials on PS5 soon. For those in the UK, they have noted that both Death Stranding Director Scott and Sackboy, A Big Adventure, now give the option for people to download and try a game for 6 hours before it locks out and asks for full payment to continue. with the 6-hour timer hilariously beginning as soon as you start downloading the game, FYI. If Sony moves fully forward with this idea, it will actually be the second time they've given trials for games in their service, having tried something similar via PS Plus late in the PS3's life cycle before completely abandoning the concept during the PS4 era. Paul, would you love trying a game, but then you have to download it, but then the timer starts right then, and then by the time the game fully downloads, you're done, you're out of time?
It's I imagine it like this.
Goofed.
They had such a fantastic idea, and I picture the Vince McMahon meme where it's like Sony announces the second attempt at game trials, and he's like, Death Stranding director's cut, Sackboy Big Adventure, 6 hours, and then it's like counted the second you start downloading the game, because as y'all know, these games take a very long time to download, and so I have like the god tier internet that would allow me to do something like that and have maybe half that amount of time, depending on what game it was. Maybe like I'd actually give it a little more generous and say I'd have like a solid 4, maybe 5 hours for some of those games. But for most people, that is not going to happen.
No, not at all. It's like not everyone has fast internet everywhere in the world. That's just fact. I can barely squeeze 200 megabyte download. We just upgraded for 200 megabyte here in El Salvador. Just give it an idea. So it's like this trial should be as soon as you start play. Kind of like if you rent something in Amazon, the timer starts as soon as you start play. You can rent something and kind of keep it there, but you have a 48-hour period to actually watch it. Regardless how you want to use it, it's a 48.
I want to point out is that they chose Death Stranding, the cinematic game that has 30+ minute cutscenes, for one of the things you could do. Not only is it huge, not only do you only get 6 hours with it, but then you start up Death Stranding before you even play. You're going to have maybe 30 minutes left. Maybe.
Right. I tell you, it's like
you're gonna get to walk with the corpse like 10 feet, and it's gonna go, "Hey, buddy, you ready to finish up and pay for the rest of this game?"
Yes, and that's what I say. Like, I think 6 hours is a good sample to try Death Stranding if the counter starts at play.
Yes,
because that's a game that I feel it's brilliant that they would test it with that game because it's so weird, and it may look boring just watching videos, but it's different when you're playing. That was always my concern when I saw all the demos leading into the release in 2019. I was like, this is delivery mail simulator 2019.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Kojima, but will I be able to? And it's like when you have controller in hand and see like, oh my God, this is really interesting how like he gamified traversal.
Yeah.
And especially and the game really clicks when you start building stuff. So, but it's a bunch of hours in. But if the timer starts literally when you start downloading, not taking into account that anyone's download speed is completely different, like I feel it is like that game's cutscene heavy early on. You won't be able to get to play anything. That's going to be a bad impression if you have bad internet, if you only have a few times left to play.
Oh, yeah.
And that would backfire. So I like the idea, but Sony is very particular in always having good ideas and bungling the execution so badly. So no surprise there. And speaking of Sony bungling, number 5, earlier this year, Sony announced they were planning to completely shut down the PS3 and PS Vita stores for good and eliminating any way to purchase content on legacy hardware. After massive fan backlash, and I say massive, over the total disrespect of their legacy content, they backtracked and allowed the store to remain open for now. However, if you think this means they still don't intend on eventually killing these stores, their recent announcement, they're eliminating the ability for you to directly purchase anything in those stores with a credit or debit card or even PayPal. Should tell you what's in store for the future of these stores, which means it's on its way out. Yeah. If you're planning on buying anything in these systems right now. Like once this goes into effect, you can only buy anything by buying digital codes that you can still put in redeem codes in the store, or adding funds to your wallet on a PS4 or PS5, and I think through account management on website. I could be mistaken. I will just add to this. This wouldn't be a problem of concern if they would actually figure out how to actually make backwards compatibility a thing. This is why this is concerning.
Let no one think that we're a Sony fanboy podcast, because this is ridiculously stupid.
It's stupid.
It's like they want to sneak through the loophole that they've created themselves, where they said, oh, we're shutting it down, nobody uses it anyway, and they're like, no, we really do. Also, there's a lot of stuff that you just still haven't been able to take off. You have to make that available to people. We just finished talking about the idea of emulation only existing as a necessity because these companies keep shutting down methods to get access to classic games. That is literal history. That is hundreds and thousands of hours of work.
Your legacy. It's your legacy.
Your own legacy. Your own series that are just being stuck on an island, and then you're just leaving it to never come back. And when the fans are caring more about their own IPs, that's a problem. I mean, we've talked about it with Nintendo having the problem. I would say, just as much as we joke about it, I feel like most of the time Microsoft cares about their own IPs. If they had it, they want to keep it there. Whether or not they just beat the dead horse or not, at least they have it around. But then you have Sony and Nintendo, which feel perfectly fine just shoving it off.
Microsoft can literally say tomorrow, we're shutting down the Xbox 360 store and you can buy games on an Xbox 360. But guess what? Those games are backwards compatible.
Yeah.
Over there. In
you can buy and play like all of it on Xbox One, and probably most of them on PC by now anyway. So, like, I would think that the biggest problem with this is, I remember going through the PS3 era and finding all these amazing things, and like Alejandro said earlier, the fact that we are missing out on so many big things. Even Metal Gear Solid 4, one of the greatest PS3 games of all time, one of the greatest games in general of all time, with one of the greatest endings to a series. The fact that it's still stuck on PlayStation 3 is a problem.
And you can only play it with PS Now with awful lag and grimy look because it's a streaming game. So it's
exactly. So when they seem so flippant about removing abilities for people to do something, I mean, if they don't want us to complain about losing access to the PlayStation 3 and the PS Vita's store, fix emulation. Fix the ability to put things on PlayStation 4 and 5, and we'll stop complaining.
Here's what's funny. Do you know that the way the Xbox One did backwards compatibility is that they figured out emulation within a system that was not designed for it. They figured it out.
Not even a thing. Or why is that not more of a thing? Because like, if emulation's so good, especially with these current systems basically being PCs, you'd think they would hire people that do emulation to learn how it works for their own systems. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how you get the game working, as long as it works on the system. Consumer doesn't care.
Yeah.
And you can literally get people to pay for a game that doesn't that only works on your system through an emulator. They don't care. They'll throw you $5, $10, $15, $20 depending on how much they love this game. It feels like free money. It feels like a slam dunk, and for whatever reason, these companies still don't seem to follow along with it.
At least one of them does. The one that lost last generation, but their work is exemplary. Like literally, I wasn't joking. It's like they could literally announce right now, after we finish recording this, that they're like, if you have an Xbox 360, you won't be able to buy anything anymore there. But no one would bat an eye because they already made the work so that in their current hardware, you can still experience a bunch of those games that they put in backwards compatibility that were not held back by licensing nightmare. Like, obviously, there's a bunch of like licensed games from that era that are not available because of licensing is such a bitch in every way possible.
You kind of can't get them on the original hardware anyway,
Mm-hmm.
unless
exactly because they already
right.
unless you go move heaven and earth and someone has a copy that they no longer want. And yeah, it's like the PS3 will always be an albatross, the scarlet letter on Sony, for having done, for in their own hubris, having done a system that was so hard to develop for, that it made every game that was multi-platform always run or look worse there until a certain point. Took developers almost an entire generation to feel comfortable at putting out a PS3 version that wasn't leaps and bounds worse than the 360 generation. I talked about it in our topic from last week. It's like, yeah, I switched to play on PS3 because of the mistake of where my father bought Call of Duty for Modern Warfare, and it was rough. Always have to be crossing fingers that in every game that came to both platforms, it was gonna at least be functional on the PS3. I mean, the PS3 eventually reached its nadir with Skyrim. Skyrim PS3 is legendarily like awful. Yeah. It was like so bad. Literally, it was so freaking bad that the basis of the PS4 was like they had Skyrim. They literally, you can, Mark Cerny was like, the experience that happened with Skyrim is why we designed the PS4 this way. We could no longer do this bespoke.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't no longer do this bespoke shit that they were doing with the PS3 with Supercell processor and all this different like thing. It was like a complete nightmare to develop for. It's like the only way that you could ring out two versions of the same game in 360 and PS3 that looked similar is if you started development on PS3 and then moved to 360. The other way around, it was never gonna work. And because the 360 was the mostly dominant console that generation until the very end, the PS3 overpassed it when it didn't matter. Devs would, it's kind of like we're talking with PC, they would go where the numbers are. They would put the money where it was going to be easier for the return of investment, and screw PS3. Like, yeah, people, if they want to buy it there, it's going to be there, but here's where we're playing now. So, and I figured if the PS3 is such a disaster, that was that Sony see that it's going to be such a tough way to properly emulate. And they're probably looking at these dudes doing the emulator over on PC, how long it's taking them to get it right. And that's why they're like, that's okay. But it sucks that most of PlayStation's most memorable games came in PS3. So, damn, Sony, it's an absolute shame.
I'm really hoping that we have more breakthroughs in emulation, and if I can play all these PlayStation 3 games on PC, then I will.
Yeah, to me, as long as you can get out of the PS3 a way for you to play Heavenly Sword, the original Killzones, Infamous, Resistance, even so, Jak and Daxter is technically in PS4, but the version is not an HD version, like it came out on PS3. Take those out, and then maybe I would be more okay with the PS3 closing, because obviously we got the news that Konami may bring the already released Metal Gears as remasters. So it's like, that would be a good way to because that's the way, if that's what's needed to get those games like on PlayStation now on modern hardware, then it's like, okay, as long as those games, you can play them now, not on PS Now, because God knows, like, experience varies wildly there if you're just play on PS3 games there. But if they had figured this out, they could have announced the shutting off of the stores and no one would have been an eye on, because they never figured it out and they will always have to carry this forever. Final story, also Sony. Apparently Sony is planning on announcing a big remake around Christmas time. According to Irish singer Ava McMahon, who only goes by the music name Ava, some music she recorded is going to be purposed for this upcoming remake. She said that very flippantly. Oh yeah, I recorded music that's going to be in the for a remake they're making. And they'll probably announce it later this year, so Christmas. What will this remake be? No one knows. It is to be noted that the Game Awards always happen in December, so that's always the E3 for December every year. So if this remake were to be revealed, it's likely to appear at Jeff Keeley's show. What could it be? Put tinfoil hats on. I don't know what it could be. I'm like completely like,
I don't even really want to make any claims about it. I don't know who the lady is. I don't know what kind of stuff she does. I don't know what kind of stuff she did for this. if I knew any other details, I could start making assumptions. But I mean, the fact that she said that, either she has very specific information that she knows, or she doesn't understand the context of what she made at all. So
I would say, like, if you're asked someone to make music they're gonna put into something, they're gonna immediately tell you what it is for. Kind of like what happened with Tony Hawk last year. That a dude announced that they had made music that was going to show up in Tony Hawk before they revealed that it was Tony Hawk 1 and 2 Pro Skater. So
I think it is going to be the former rather than the latter. I don't know about this whole Christmas announcement though, because what I'm understanding it from this statement is that she did the work, and she's assuming, based on them saying this year, that it's got to be December. But as we know, goals to match certain times, especially in this time that we live in, is not accurate in the slightest. So it probably exists, probably real, whatever it is. Man, I don't even know what else there is that can be remade.
For PlayStation in particular, they have a massive library over in the PS1 and PS2 era. Massive, very niche stuff. And before the last week's news, I would have said, oh, is this when they're finally going to reveal Metal Gear Solid? Yeah. But after the Konami news, it's like, yeah. And especially the Blue Point being like, yeah, our next project is not going to be a remake. It's going to be a new thing. So it's like, oh, well, there goes the idea for a remake now.
I don't want to keep my hopes up for this one too much, but if you had to pick one of those random remake, one of those original Sony properties to remake, what do you think you'd pick off the top of your head?
Everyone always asks for Legend of Dragoon, which is a very classic RPG from PS1 that was very like intrinsically tied with PlayStation. So maybe that one, because it's like so old. Like anything from that PS1 era. I mean, we did get Medieval. That was from PS1 like 2 years ago. It was decent. That's true. And it worked. It was a decent remake. That game's not very good, I'll say that, but I'm glad they did it because I got to experience it with as much modern code of paint as possible. But the gameplay of that game, another game that made me grow white hair. I'll tell you that. But yeah, and Metal Gear would have been my thing. Like Metal Gear is like bar none my favorite series of all time, like as a franchise. And anything that can keep that series alive for me, it's always going to be like priority number one. Other than that, I have no idea. I mean, we already got a reimagining coming for Twisted Metal. That would have been another one, but we already know that they're kind of working on that. So other than that, yeah, I'm at a loss.
If we got, I mean, I've recently been on my Castlevania kick. If we got like a full-on Symphony of the Night remake, like ground up, I think that would be fantastic.
I mean, it already happened. It's called Bloodstained. I'm just kidding.
Stop it.
It's from the same creator. That's the thing. Bloodstained is from the creator of
I know.
Symphony of the Night.
It absolutely is. I just didn't vibe with the main character nearly as much.
And the 2.5D graphics?
Well, no, it was all right. It looked janky to me. I'm glad they improved it because people clearly didn't like that initial Kickstarter look, and it was an improvement. But,
took a long while to like the Kickstarter was like announced in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
The game came out in 2019. It wasn't a Mighty Number 9 situation. That game, did you ever play Mighty Number 9?
No, but I actually watched my roommate play it.
Man, that's like any old school Mega Man fan got their souls torn out by Mighty Number 9, especially coming from the creator of Mega Man. It's like that was tragic. And with that, and anything else you like to be remade that you know of? Because I can think of
Sly Cooper. I would go with that. I mean, Jack and Daxter still kind of holds up all right, so I don't know if I would.
And
have,
those
like,
games are available.
remake.
Like that's the thing. And those games are as a PS2 classic, so it can be they can be there.
Spyro's already been remade from the ground up. You know what? That Buzz Lightyear game.
Hopefully,
we gotta bring back the Buzz Lightyear game.
We should ask Disney, see if they care.
Remake Atlantis the Lost Empire, you cowards.
Yeah. So many classic Disney games from that era.
Yeah.
And with that, that's the end of the news for this week. As for games that are coming out this week, I have no idea. So nothing that stands out to me. Who knows? Maybe that's the thing. There are always games coming out, but it's not like games that we're actually super hyped about. I mean, I didn't end up buying Alan Wake remake because I was like, I had the 360 version, and from what I looked, it was like they didn't do much other than up-res it. So I was like, maybe I can just play through the 360 version then and wait for a sale on the other one. So, and now that we're done with the news, for video and audio listeners of the full show, we are transitioning over to what have we been playing.
Welcome again to another episode of our show where I, your host and greatest person ever, am joined with today the boy wonder and the source for Lady Gaga's hit song Alejandro. Hey guys, how's it going?
And Zach.
Hey, Paul.
Oh yeah, I said the boy wonder. So yeah, his name is Zach though.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Zach, this might be the second time in the world I've ever seen you on video. The first being the behind the statics radio.
From like 2 years ago.
Right, because you weren't here the last time I was on video.
No, I wasn't. And the last time you were the creepy Team Fortress 2 documentary
Shadowy silhouette.
Yes.
And then he was here when you were in the middle of a hurricane.
Yes, which I was obviously a little bit absent for.
So
hey guys, what have y'all been doing today? What in general this past week? Y'all having fun, enjoying yourselves, playing anything?
Playing a bunch of stuff, but what about you, Zach?
So, 2 weeks ago, I beat Kana, and then you guys said, "Oh, we'll beat it too, so we can talk about the boss fight at the end."
Oops!
And then you guys never did.
I'm so close to it. I pushed through. I'm on the last area right now where you got your spirit dash, and I'm working through it. And boy, is it emotional. And unfortunately, I couldn't finish it before like midnight last night. And I was just like, I can't.
Just to give context where I'm at this candle puzzle that I just beat. The one where you have to see where you have to shoot the arrows for. I think you guys mentioned it.
Can you believe this guy?
Yeah, so, like I haven't played Kena at all. So since then.
Fake fan. We got a fake fan over here, guys.
I've been playing other stuff. I've been trying to save it and savor it. I've always been saying that, but yeah, but Zach did blast through it, so have the floor. What do you think of the full Kena experience?
In general, I absolutely love the game. My experience was I played on the hardest difficulty available at start because I thought I was a pro gamer. And let me tell you something. When you start on the highest difficulty, at the very beginning of Kana, you think you made the right choice because you're going through those low-level enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the first mini-boss fight. And you start to realize, maybe I've made a mistake. Because when you get to those mini-bosses, you realize they can one-hit your shield. The parry window is very, very tiny.
Always a problem with that.
And you don't do as much damage to them as you do the little enemies. And then once you beat the mini-boss, they become the regular enemies. And you just have to fight them in the world. But I made it all the way to the final boss fight on that difficulty. And that's when I had to stop and I had to lower to the difficulty because that last boss fight was just brutal on me.
Yeah, is there a trophy to beat it in the hardest difficulty? Because that would incentivize me?
For the hardest difficulty you unlock after you beat the game.
Oh, shoot.
Oof. Yikes. And I would say that even playing a normal, there's been some enemies. There was one that you go down a slope. You had just gotten the bow. And then you fight that enemy that was kind of kicking me. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
This is not as easy as it made it seem. This is not like Dark Souls Light. This is straight up Dark Souls at this point. and the thing is that there's this game designer that I follow, David Jaffe. He created God of War and the Twisted Metal series. He's very he doesn't care about offending people or saying his opinion. He said that he loved Keenan when he reached those boss fights. He despised the game and he played it normal.
Oh, no.
So it's like, oh, yikes.
So I would I would say that maybe they could have done something slightly better with like balancing it, because the whole idea of like hard difficulties, you want the people playing the game to know where they're at with that experience. If it's like really easy for solid 5 hours and then all of a sudden it gets like the hardest thing in the world, then I feel like that is a bit of a failure from game design standing. But what do y'all think?
Yeah, I agree with you, because at the very beginning of the game I thought, oh, I need a harder difficulty for this, and that wasn't the case after a while. I was too committed to that difficulty at that point.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
You know, a game for me that I think slopes the difficulty well, and especially does the good thing of not tying any trophy progression to its difficulty, is God of War. If you play God of War and it's hard difficulty before they give me God of War super ultra hard, when you're wailing at enemies, it's like it's such tiny minuscule damage that you're doing that it's just not fun.
Yeah.
But then when you get stronger and you get better armor and all that, in normal the enemies start feeling weaker. So then you can incentivize yourself to push it up to hard now. And now the enemies with your current power level now feel like a normal. I kind of did that in my first playthrough, and it was very rewarding. But it also has to be said, what about the people that want to just play it on hard from the get-go? If you're just constantly wailing and the health is just going slow, the stagger meter is not going hard. I'll have something to say about a certain game that does something similar soon, because I'm here to roast someone. And yeah, there's something to be said, because you can just try to get sometimes the difficulty just not right enough at an initial impression. So I think it's valid.
I think you actually bring something up that I think should be more common, and that is switching difficulties on the fly. I think people hype up the idea of, if you've picked a high difficulty and you realize that it's difficult, that they feel like they have to suffer, or they suffer some kind of weird shame in the gaming industry. Even if they don't tell anybody, they feel like they've failed. And I know I felt like that before with a lot of situations. Even Skyrim is one of the first instances of that, where like you're just not equipped to deal with some enemies, like the dragons, and
or the bears,
or the bears, or the Yeti that like heals himself unless you have fire magic. And it's just it's like you're not really prepared, and you're not prepared through the eyes of the game developer until a certain point. And then you say on the other side, where you're just way in over your head from the start. Like I started God of War on the hard setting, and I died about 10 times on the first enemy, and I just couldn't touch him because I think you die in one hit, maybe two. And I had to just immediately bring down the difficulty again, realize that I wasn't going to enjoy myself if I tried pushing through at that difficulty. So
and was that the first time you tried to play through that game? Like, did you immediately put it on hard?
No, I started off on normal and was like, okay, I get the idea, I've got this, and then I bumped it up to hard, and then I struggled. It was the there was a point where like the big heavy dude shows up for the first time. Mm-hmm. That was where I had it at hard.
The troll?
Not him. It was like just a random it was like a heavier enemy than like the small skeleton dudes, but it's not like
the ones that have like a big hammer, kind of like little bulkier.
Yeah, they're just like a little. They didn't skip arm day basically, but and they would kind of dash at you, and I just couldn't.
Ironically, you have to hit those with your. You have to like drop swords, pull up your arms, and then just go at him. That's the way to beat them in hard, because it's all about the stagger.
Now, but I guess I didn't understand how vastly the strategy needs to change on harder difficulties in that, which I appreciate. I wasn't in that right mindset at the time, and I died about 20 times that dude, and I realized I had to bring the difficulty down, and I wasn't having fun.
So Zach, other than Kena, do you play anything else?
Yeah, I've been playing Bowser's Fury finally.
Hey.
Yes, the add-on for Super Mario 3D World that came out in February for everyone. Just a reminder of something that came out earlier this year. Go for it.
Yeah, it's my first 3D Mario World game. The last Mario game I played was Odyssey, and I was a little disappointed at starting this game, just how different mechanically it is from Odyssey. I really miss that triple jump you do, that Mario's iconic boing, 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 woohoo flip thing.
Yeah, the triple jump. That's classic since Mario 64 onwards. Sunshine, even Galaxy.
I love it.
As much as I love Astrobot, I think Mario's triple jump is the best thing in any platforming game.
Oh,
and I was super disappointed to see that not in Bowser's Fury.
Because it wasn't in 3D World. They just literally took all the mechanics from 3D World, which is more fixed, and transposed it in a 3D environment.
Yeah. And then I also really suck at aiming in 3D World with the fireballs and the boomerangs. I never hit the enemy I want to, so I just jump on them every time.
Like trying to get the diagonal.
Yeah.
and then it just goes.
I don't know if I've ever actually played 3D World, honestly.
You didn't have a Wii U, right? Yeah, you didn't have a Wii U, right?
Right, but didn't they eventually release that on the Switch?
That's what came out this year, on February.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I probably own that then. Okay, so I have played it. I remember I tried it with my wife, and we had a time of it because for whatever reason, most games now, they understand that if you bump into each other, that's a negative thing. So they just kind of let you pass through each other. That is not a thing in Mario 3D World.
No.
And we have killed each other so many times because one of us moves way faster than the other one gets trapped, we die, the other one dies because they're too eager, or we're trying to like run back and forth and we keep jumping at the same time and hitting each other or bouncing off each other's heads. It's a nightmare.
It's literally the new Super Mario Bros. Mentality, because you can also keep trolling your co-op people, just jumping on top of each other, and that one's fun because then they become the bubble that kind of follows you, and then you can be a jerk and just not jump on that bubble.
And it's difficult. I remember a time where I died and she literally couldn't get to my bubble because it just kind of floats randomly. Even if you try hitting the A button to like bring it over to it, it wasn't agreeing. She tried to jump for it and then died in the process of jumping to me. So it was amazing. It was terrible. But I hope that they continue doing stuff like that. Like Odyssey, they tried doing a little co-op thing where it's like, oh, he's the hat and then you're Mario. But then
Galaxy did the same thing. You're Mario and then the other one's the cursor.
I don't even really count that as co-op. Like that's not really playing the game.
Yeah.
That's just insulting to the second player.
Exactly. They're like, oh, you mean you want to play the game and your 3-year-old wants to play. Yeah. And then that's more like co-op.
Almost as insulting as showing a cutscene you've never seen for the first time and you're only in a loading screen. Only the first player gets to see it due to a glitch.
That was crazy. I was honestly expecting that to be like what their solution was to it, because they're like, oh no, you can't actually play through the first mission, so we'll just leave them at the loading screen. Yes. Let the other
We'll talk about later what that was. Zach, anything else other than Bowser Fury and Kina?
Not yet. I started out playing this new Stranded Deep, Below Zero, I think it's called, but I haven't done anything of interest there yet.
That one. That's
it's like
it's not like Subnautica, right?
But it's
Subnautica. Not Stranded Deep.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, I didn't know they made a DLC for that. Anyway, what are you thinking about it, Zach?
I'm excited. I really enjoyed the first Subnautica. Getting at the beginning of the game again and realizing I don't have all the stuff that made me enjoy the first Subnautica anymore.
Oh no,
is a challenge. And the recipes changed all a little bit, so I don't have as much knowledge as I had at the beginning of Subnautica. But I'm excited to get back into it because unlike you guys, I'm not afraid of the ocean.
Yeah, you have that. I can't with deep sea stuff.
What did they actually change about it, Zach? Is it like you started over and it's the same game plus other things in a new area, or is it like a standalone DLC? How do they do it?
It's its own game so far. I think you're even on a different planet with similar creatures, but it's a frozen area, so there's actually a lot of land that you can climb up that's ice, and there's penguins now, so that's fun.
Did they try to kill you too, or are they good?
They don't try to kill you, but I think they can kill you if you mess with them.
Oh shit. All right.
Don't mess with the penguins.
Mario 64 revenge, finally.
Oh man.
That's awesome though. One day, I swear one day I'll build up the courage to mess with it. Part of it is not just fear, because I know if I force myself I could, but I also want to play things that I like genuinely enjoy. And with so many games out now, I'm just like, I could play something else with this. I could do something different. I could play Castlevania. I could just sit there at Destiny 2 while I just sit on my phone for 15 minutes and forget that I was playing the game. It's a terrible life I live, you know. First world problems.
So speaking of that, Paul, now what have you been playing? I'm gonna go
I've
last.
been playing 5 things this week that I wrote down. Well, okay, so 6, but sort of 5. Anyway, the first one that was that little 6th is what I played with Alejandro, which was we finished Halo 1 Combat Evolved. That was an experience, and you can see that on our YouTube channel now. Unfortunately, I muted myself throughout about 3/4 of the video. I checked it today, and it really hurt my soul realizing that none of my stuff was coming through.
Especially because we had so much funny quips.
I had comedy gold going.
When we were going through the library and the mission afterwards, man. And then I see Zach Zach joins us, and then he's like, "Is Paul's mic wrong?" I was like, "No, I've been talking." I was like, "Oh no." Because you have to, because when you start streaming, you're in party chat on Xbox. It pops at the bottom that you start a party chat, and you have to press to see if you want to allow your audio in. And we did that in the first 2, but he forgot in this one.
Yeah,
total
because you have
bad
to
moment.
manually know to hit the Xbox button and then go in to do that each time. And I just forgot because we were so excited about recording. But anyway, we did that, and we started the first mission of Halo 2. So that was really fun. And then all of last night, I worked on a new Photoshop piece on our next series, which I took the same ethos of what we were going for. I took, in the first one, it was The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg, and this one is Boondock Saints. So
because PJ's reading us for Halo 3, you gotta do it. You gotta find a 3-person thing for that.
Maybe I'll do like Matrix Revolutions.
That'd be It's actually in Reloaded is where all 3 of them are.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh yeah, Reloaded, not Revolutions. So maybe I'll do that one, but we'll see. Besides that, I finished Castlevania Circle of the Moon. Metroidvanias are starting to click with me a little bit more now, especially with their magic system in that game is really cool. And I talked to you about it once, where you kind of have 2 tiers, and as you switch whatever your power is, it kind of does something slightly different. And all the fun is in experimenting with what they can all do. You can get anything from like a flaming sword to vine whips to like punching fists. You can even do like a move where you hold it down and draw your sword like a samurai, and it does more damage based on how long you hold the button. So it's like there's a lot of stuff you can kind of do in that game. And so I enjoyed it. Startup Harmony of Dissonance is very different. They like use a different engine for it or something, but it felt weird. Be a lot more Symphony of the Night, where you have like a dash forward, a dash backward, a lot more of the weird echoey moves as he flows around. But yeah, so did that. Alejandro and I played the Battlefield 2042 beta, which we'll talk about.
Oh yeah, I got things to say, but keep moving.
And then the last thing that I got was oh no, I also played Hell Let Loose, the game that we got for free. I forgot to write that in. And then Insurgency Sandstorm, which I do want to have a couple of words on that later. But let's jump into the next discussion topic with this. Alejandro, you played Battlefield as well, didn't you?
I sure did, and I recorded many clips.
Did you?
About my experience there. I posted one because it was the funniest one.
Oh boy.
DICE, EA, I beg you, please, delay this thing. Please, just take it out of this year. You have a core of a good product there. I can see the potential. I can see the hard work. But this thing is not ready. Battlefield 2042 is a broken piece of shit. Let's just call it out this way. It's like, it strobes light. Like the light, it strobes so much. Like, they're like this weird white thing. If someone has epilepsy issues, I bet you they're gonna get epilepsy. Some of the texture world, it's like you can kind of see the code morphing as you're kind of running around. The rubber banding, I sometimes experience dropping from my from because you can always spawn from the top, like falling from parachute if you decide to spawn in one of the planes, and seeing you kind of being like this over and over, almost feeling like, oh, hopefully this glitching is preventing me from all the people that are shooting me at the top and not hitting me. No, it still hits you. You're just having to deal with the strobe-like effect of all of that that's happening. The frame rate is all over the place. It feels at times that it's running well, and then it just tanks. And I'm playing on a PlayStation 5. It's I was so excited for Battlefield to make a comeback, to be now in a year where Call of Duty seems very muted. Like, you don't see any, even from the most diehard of fanboys, you don't even see the like the excitement for it. It's like a mild shrug. Everyone just rather play Warzone in that community. So it's like you had your opening here. Like, you had the time finally to stick the knife that you couldn't back in Battlefield 4 when Ghost was very not well received, and you're literally about to walk into the same minefield by releasing something that in no way, shape, or form is ready. And I immediately deleted it after I sent you guys the clip. I was like, nah, I can't do this. This is just too much. And EA has been doing good this year. Out of the three publishers we talk about, Activision is in litigation nightmare. I told Ubisoft to go fuck itself yesterday in our news section, and EA has been the one that's been like, okay, they're doing stuff. They're bringing back Dead Space. They released It Takes Two, Rocket. What was
Rocket Arena?
I don't think it was Rocket Arena. It's
Knockout
City. It's like all these games are highly beloved, and if they release this, they're gonna just tank all the goodwill, because you're not, especially in a time where you're gonna have a Call of Duty game that for some reason its beta wasn't busted. I played that beta. It was like, yeah, this works, so it's going.
It did surprisingly play well, honestly.
Because
despite
of
it not being like anything super great, it was like, okay,
it's using the Modern Warfare 2019 engine, so it's like at the very least in movement, that's more solid than the Black Ops engine. So, and it's gonna be fully featured. It's gonna have its zombies. It's gonna have a campaign. It's gonna have its multiplayer. Battlefield was like, no, we're just doing multiplayer because that's our strength. We're not gonna do campaign because no one likes our campaigns. I would argue there's a few of them that are good, but in the majority, it's like you don't play Battlefield for a campaign. So you're already coming in as the $70 multiplayer only game in a market that also has a fully featured Call of Duty game and a Halo game whose Infinite beta was phenomenal. It was barely, like, you could barely see any issues for something that was a beta. That thing was so polished it could have launched the next day.
It could have, yeah.
And it's gonna be free to play.
And I kind of thought it was already out because of how many people were playing it.
Yeah, and how successful those betas are. So now Battlefield is at a massive disadvantage, just in tech alone. And when you're a month out, like, you put out a beta almost a month out, and you say that's an old build, that's bullshit. Remember Fallout 76? That had a beta. There's like, no, this is not representative of the final game. And then the game released, and it was even worse. And Battlefield brokenness, it's not, like, you already know what a broken Battlefield is. That was called Battlefield 4. That took almost a year before it like recovered. And I feel you can get one redemption story, you cannot get two. Because it's like, you get your one time to mess up and then you fix it and all that. Obviously, they also had Battlefront 2, but that's a different series. They eventually fixed that, but that wasn't a technical problem. That was a design philosophy that they had to remove with the loot boxes. So, yeah, like Battlefield 2042 is like, no, just
telling you
push
you're
it.
wrong, Alejandro. They're doing amazing stuff. They're putting it in the modern day, but they're like making it futuristic, and it's awesome. And you can like fly, and you can be like only in Battlefield, and then you can like post a clip of some weird stuff happening, and like you just don't get it, Alejandro. It's too avant-garde for you. It's just too big brain.
Good thing I got the video clips. I got the receipts of how bad that thing is. So.
All right. Well, let me. Yeah. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, but I'm first gonna agree with you in a lot of ways. I think they can make something happen if they don't delay it. I don't think they will. I think they need this to come out.
Do they?
Wish.
Do they? They got FIFA. They got the sports games. They got things to have come out. They don't put out your flagship title just to say that you put it out, and then it's gonna be clowned on because you know people are not gonna be. They're not gonna be merciful. Not in this era that we live in, where you can share literally everything.
Yeah. And that's one point where I agree with you that people are getting a lot less okay with games launching in a broken state. They were able to do it for certain things. I mean, one of the most famous example is GTA Online when that launched. I'm sure y'all remember how that all played out. And I was there the first day. I made about 5 different characters and they kept getting deleted. And I just wanted to get as far into those missions as. And we're back. We were just finishing talking about our experiences with the starting day of GTA Online. I remember that much, and how disastrous that was. Alejandro, you remember that, right?
Absolutely. I try, especially it was worse for me because I tried to play it on PS3 back at our college, and that college had internet at NAT3, so there was like no way.
That's even worse.
Yeah, there was like you were driving around. There's no one could connect. Like where you were placed, it was like this empty world. So
I remember just how disjointed it all was. I created, I think, 5 or 6 different characters and tried to get as far as I could until it would kick me out of it.
I will say though that because you were mentioning how people were getting are more okay with like broken games and all that. GTA Online, okay. Yes, less okay. Like that was 2013 is notorious for being the year where so many broken games came out. SimCity, an EA game. Like notorious, like it killed the studio that made SimCity. Obviously GTA Online, but because it's Rockstar and GTA, people didn't make as much of a stink to it as you would expect.
It wasn't the source of the game. You still had to fall back of GTA 5 itself.
Exactly. That was the excuse, especially many of the reviewers that showered that game with 10 out of 10s. They were like, yeah, this is not working, but the real package is what you originally bought, and that game is still phenomenal over here.
Right.
And the cherry on top of that year is Battlefield 4 when it launched the next gen, which is so funny. We're circling back almost 8 years into another modern Battlefield that's apparently too undercooked. And but I already made my spiel. So, what was your experience with Battlefield 2042?
So my first day was 50-50. The first first match that I had went pretty well. Everything behaved like it was supposed to. There's a couple jumping around, a couple of like trees falling over that would start glitching out if you killed an enemy. Sometimes he would do like the weird like ragdoll thing. But those were always things that like I would see them in Battlefields every once in a while, and they wouldn't really like break my immersion as much as like, Battlefield's being weird again. Okay. Because it would never really directly affect me. And then the second match that I started up, and it didn't actually even load. It was there was no bottom layer. There was like barely sky. There was flickering everywhere. There were just like ships floating in the distance, kind of like the Death Stranding BTs at the start of the game. They were just like, it was weird.
One of my favorite glitches was when I spawned in one of the airplanes. The pilot and co-pilot players were like floating next to me when I looked to the left, even though that was not for. They were just chilling there. I was like, but the cockpit is over here. Why are you here? Just like that. It's like, man.
Stuff like that would start to happen, and I still, for specifically Battlefield, I both have a soft spot because it's like my favorite type of first-person shooter where it's like larger scope, larger feel, and when you do that, I understand there has to be things that you have to do to kind of mitigate the stress that it puts on your systems and their servers to do that. So like I played through all of Battlefield 3. I still remember the opening mission for Battlefield 3 being one of my favorite FPS experiences.
The train?
Because I don't remember what it was called, honestly.
Yeah, you're
it was
jumping
like
in a train, in a subway train. That's the first mission of Battlefield 3.
Then I don't know what it was like. You were a group in like Afghanistan.
That's the second mission. That's the second mission of Battlefield 3.
Why do I not remember that? Okay, well anyway, second mission is one of my favorite experiences because it's like this really slow, methodical like walk patrol through this Middle Eastern city, and like you get to use like single shot. Everything looked really good, even though like now it's probably aged pretty horribly. And I was enjoying the heck out of it. So we'll circle back to that moment later. But in multiplayer, it was just like absolute bonkers. It felt like I was a 10-year-old crashing little military action figures together. And that was my experience with that, and I was loving it.
What console? On what console do you play Battlefield 3?
360.
360.
Definitely 360.
So you play the gimped versions. It's like you I don't think
Really?
you and I, yeah, because the PC version was the 64-player battles, the high frame rates, high particle effects, destructions. It's like Battlefield 3 was a next-gen game that got somehow made work in a very gimped way on PS3 and
Wow.
360. That's why Battlefield 4 was like such a big deal in the launch of those consoles, because it was like now everyone's gonna experience what it was like to play like
That's
a full-blown
true.
scale Battlefield on a console with
Yeah.
like no compromises in frame rate and player counts. And unfortunately, because there was no way to beta test that, that's why that game launched horribly in Battlefield 4, that it was deleting saves. You couldn't even sometimes play the game. Like it was that broken for some people. I had a friend from college that he told me that he had the disc and the disc wouldn't like have the pop, and then he would always press X and it would always give him an error despite him having the disc and installed. It's like that game was a clusterfuck of complete glitches. It was like pages and pages of
So it sounds like I got lightning in a bottle
Yes.
when I started that game, and I'm pretty sure I got it like, if not 1 or 2, maybe like several years after it actually came out, because I was really late to that party.
Yeah, as long as you were later than September 2014, then nothing that game got crapped on you experienced, because it took them that long.
Then that probably, it took me a while. And then of course Battlefield 4, I played through that. I played the single player for a while because I really enjoyed it. And I love when Battlefield does things that Battlefield does, like weird, very specific military cockpit scenes. Like that one whole scene where you're just sitting in the back seat and all you have to really do is hit like I think you have to fire the missiles and you have to fire the chaff, and that's like all you do the whole mission. But just how specific and drawn out it was, I'm just like, okay, this is weird and pretentious, but I like it. And then with every other experience of Battlefield has just been like middle of the road to like positive usually. So when this was coming out, I was like, it feels kind of like more of the same. I will say though, it's that strobe light effect needs to be fixed, or it's not even worth it. That is genuinely like dangerous to most people, if not all of them, because even for me, who doesn't suffer from epilepsy, it gives me like a massive headache, and it'll hurt. And then like if you just like you were in the parachutes, I was in a gunner's position in a tank, and it would do that wobbly thing,
rubber banding. That's
so
rubber banding.
poorly. And I was just like, I can't see. I'm blinding myself here.
Do you also get the moment where the game would just look blue, like completely like miss the color? It would stay like blue until it like recovered color. It would also do that. I couldn't believe sometimes what I was seeing. I was like, am I again in Cyberpunk 2077 territory here with what I'm seeing here? Because like it's unacceptable. Like it totally is, and they shouldn't, like, they already know what it was like having to tarnish that series' name with Battlefield 4 and then having to do that again with 5, but in a different way, because they didn't fully feature that game, because they were so focused on fixing Battlefront 2 that then by the time Battlefield was coming out, I was like, oh crap, we forgot we're also releasing a game. Oh yeah, it's a service early access title, sold as a full price game, we'll fill it over time. It's like Battlefield, like only Battlefield 1 this last generation is the only one that launched and was like unanimously loved in all its many different aspects. It didn't have like the brouhaha of things. Like
despite the glitches that it did have, it usually held together pretty well. I mean, the worst was like balancing issues where like the beta for Battlefield 1, I remember people couldn't even touch the objective because you would find like these sniper positions and you could just go like across the map with the thing. And that was a weird experience, but it was one of the best that I had with Battlefield 1.
And
overall.
that was a design thing that you could kind of tweak afterwards. It wasn't technical.
It wasn't like deep in. I mean, you had like your glitches and your Zeppelin like going vertical and spinning fire and stuff like that. I'm sure y'all saw the highlights for those. And especially anytime you tried to interact with the horses at all was like a nightmare usually.
That was stuck in the environment.
some of the vehicles would like freak out and like hit a spot that they weren't supposed to, and it would like catapult them. But that was like, that's just Battlefield being Battlefield. And you're like, there's a certain point that's a very blurred line between Battlefield being weird and being legitimately broken. I think some people are getting a little too into that side of like, oh, this has glitches, that means it's terrible. And I'm like, okay, guys, remember what we're talking about. But then there are also very important problems that need to be addressed as well within that.
I feel like if your game works from a technical level, physics messing up in multiplayer doesn't matter. Just look at Halo Infinite.
Exactly.
Hold on, guys.
I think the FBI is busting his door down.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened? Are the Chinese coming for you again?
Yeah, don't worry. You can go take care of what you need to, Zach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So anyway.
No, so anyways, like, if like a game is technically competent, weird glitches that happen from physics messing up and all that, those are the funny things. Because it's not... Okay.
He forgot to mute himself.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Waiting. And waiting.
And you might as well continue your thought.
Yes. Like, physics messing up is like, sometimes that's where the fun of the game comes. Just look at Halo Infinite. Like, some of the best things that I saw from that game is like people weaponizing the game's physics. That's what made Halo fun.
Exactly.
But if that game was all like, if that game had that, and on top of that had the rubber banding, the white strobe like effect that had no reason for it there being, it's like, I think that's kind of where I'm going to. It's like, I'd rather them take the time to eliminate that kind of technical this disaster that's there, because that's a little bit more. It's just, how can I say it? Yeah, it's like, I'd rather that be fixed and then leave all the weird Yankee crap, because then that's the kind of fun. It's not gonna prevent you from actually playing the game and probably harm yourself in the process. So yeah, that's
I agree, and I think that's a big part of it. One aspect I do want to gush about Battlefield in general that I definitely felt here is the prevalence of people that want to play it like Call of Duty is both a problem, but a weakness that can also be exploited. And there is not a game series around that I feel more like Snake from Metal Gear Solid 2 specifically than in Battlefield, because so many people are running around, running and gunning wildly, that if you use like your brain just a tiny amount, you get some amazing experiences. Where I was playing as the sentry character, and I put up a little spot, and apparently the little dog thing and the sentry gun have like ridiculous range with their guns, and you can wipe out like an entire team with stuff like that. And being able to just post up and watch people panic and run around like Tusken Raiders getting vaporized by the Mandalorian, it's a fantastic moment that I love, and I wish more games did it. But you almost can't do it unless you have the resources of EA. But I'm going to talk more about that in a minute when we switch games.
Yes, it's like, man, it's funny that you mentioned that people play it almost like Call of Duty, because it even has some almost eerily similarities to Warzone, like going from like aiming and then pressing the reload button and you're still aiming while reloading. They straight up copied that from like Call of Duty. There's like you're able to do the slide, so I can see why some people would rather try to play it that way, and that's going to be a very massive disadvantage because the time to kill a Battlefield is way different. I will say this: the 128 player matches, very cool in concept, not as fun in execution. I feel like they have almost destabilized the game almost from a balance perspective, where now because the maps are even bigger, it's gonna like push the meta more into the sniper game. And also the fact that the class system is sometimes very hard to like differentiate, and at times like the game will glitch out and not tell me that I'm looking at an enemy or a flame. You know that if you're looking at an enemy, you will have like a red thing if you're staring at it. So sometimes I would be shooting at my teams, oh yeah, no, that's, oh yeah, why didn't it show the blue before? So it not only has those, it has some weird design choices that they've made that before this beta, I was like, yeah, Battlefield's gonna cream. It's gonna like grab the mob the mop and just slam Vanguard into it, because that's how it looked. After this beta, I was like, Call of Duty must be like, like literally, because at the very least their thing worked. Obviously, right now they have to. This is the test now. Well, this sort of Damocles that is, or Damocles, I don't know how you say it. Damocles. That is the Damocles, however, whatever. That constant threat that is the Activision lawsuit, that it's still ongoing. More things are happening to that thing. Will that affect Vanguard? Will enough people like put 2 and 2 together? I mean, they went as far as eliminating all Activision logos out of any promo material for Call of Duty, so they know it's serious. Will that be enough? Because Call of Duty is so entrenched. But the only way that you can pull things away from Call of Duty is if your competition is solid, rock solid. Twice now has EA found like had an opening. First it was Battlefield 4, now it's 2042. Battlefield 4 like completely missed the mark at launch when it could have mattered. And now with this one, now we know where the kind of shape this game is. It was allegedly an old build. That excuse of old builds like doesn't fly for me, because so many times people make that excuse and the game is just as broken when it launches. It's like the only time you can believe a beta is an old build is if you have at least 6 month lead time, not a month. So
true.
I would say beware. I'm gonna wait and hear what the people that are actually still buying Battlefield say. That will be the final tale if they actually fix all these little issues. But as of right now, I ain't buying that game. I'm out.
I've already pre-ordered it, so I'm gonna be picking it up anyway.
Yeah, you're stuck either way.
Honestly, this is gonna be a Cyberpunk situation all over again for me. Because
I feel bad for you because
I am.
Like
every year around this time, I am cursed.
Yeah. Because anyway. we always talk about a certain someone that used to be part of our group that I always laughed at every time thing that he was always excited for, always like face planning in itself until he finally broke that curse. I don't want that for you because I like you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but it also, it's funny because I have receipts of that December 10th to December 18th process before it all let. Yeah. So just beware.
Some of it I will still stand by. And I know I'm going to be a lot gentler to this game than I should be. As long as they take away the strobing lights.
That's going to be enough. That's going to be enough, I tell you.
Maybe the desync, that's usually, it's still sometimes a problem anyway, but I could live with it as long as like they don't wipe progression on accident and they fix the strobing. I could live with it. And I will have a lot of fun because I played like 3 or 4 solid days of that and not much else because it was just so fun to jump through. And then speaking of fun and the lack thereof, let's talk about Hell Let Loose.
Yeah.
So Alejandro,
I did play it. I played it, and that's the quickest I uninstalled the game because it's like, I'm not for this. I'm out. Go for it.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too long about it, but I do want to give it a little respect because I realized the specific type of game that is. They go for a very specific feel, and that is that I guess I'll tell a story about this. 2 of my friends, their names are Paul also and Jake. I play Rainbow Six with them back in the day.
Paul? Are you kidding
me? No, I said Paul and Jake.
But I just think about it. It's like you have a Jake Paul.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. Jake Paul. No relation to the singular person of the similar name. So I play with Rainbow Six Siege with them all the time, and then we kind of dropped off on that because Siege is kind of crazy. They played that previously, and they said, all right, Paul, have you played Hell Let Loose yet? And I join up with them, and I'm seeing the menu for the first time, and I'm like, no, I've never touched this. And he's like, is your wife near you? And I was like, why? Yeah, she's over there. He's like, kiss her goodbye. You're going to war. You are going to be terrified. You're going to die, and it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, it's like one-shot kills, basically, right? Yeah,
pretty much. Yes. And so I join in, and it is like a foggy French landscape in the middle of a forest, like Battle of Bulge. And it is just like we get to the front line where kind of our little markers end on our team, and then it's just blackness of like nondescript forestry. And I was like, all right, where's the enemy? And they're like, they're in the forest. That's you're looking at them right now. You just can't see them. And sure enough, going in there, you start to like hear shots ring out past you. I watched a guy right in front of me just get domed and like the splatter hit my camera, and I was like, ah. And it was legitimately terrifying, especially like when you start hearing machine gun fire and like you see shadows moving behind the trees and stuff. And there was a point later on that I was crawling through this field, and I looked to my left behind a small outcropping of a rock as another enemy that had done the exact same thing, crawling across the field. And we have this like horrifying moment where we look at each other like the moment in Saving Private Ryan, and I kill him. And I swear I felt like a high like nothing else than in that moment because of how wildly realistic and authentic it felt to like a World War II experience. It's so specifically made, and I respect it, but I know I cannot play it for very long, or at all alone.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I played that alone with like letting myself matchmate, and then I have these people that I think were from France speaking French. So
Really?
I couldn't understand what they were doing. So I was like, okay, so I won't be able to chat with this. It spawns me like very far from where they are. Yeah. So I'm like, do I really have to like take the trek all the way where they are? No. And the movement of this game is so slow.
It's very clunky.
Very slow. That is like, and the funny thing is that visually it almost presents itself as like a Call of Duty almost, like modern, like in the way like lighting is made, like the way your weapon, the way you hold your weapon is like, yeah, it's like it's taking a lot of cues from that series, but obviously it's a little bit more tactical. I feel I would have had more fun had I played it like with you or someone else, someone to like really get into it. I think it's like a simulator, like almost like World War II simulation.
It is complete simulation, probably the most simulation I've seen since I played Arma 3, to give you like perspective. So, and that's like full on, just the most detailed I've ever seen, at least for console. Seeing something like that on a console was crazy enough as it was
for a 2-year-old game, by the way. Yeah, that game came out in 2019 on PC.
I figured out how it actually works, and that the like trickle down communication system in that game is both from like, you have your person at the top who's the commander, and they're doing the strategy side. So there's one person deciding all of this. Within that, each of your squads has one person called an officer. They have a special voice chat with other officers in the other squads. So they get the orders from the commander, they talk with all the other officers to coordinate, and then you have to switch vocal channels to your little squad to tell your buddies what to do. And that's how it's supposed to work, and it feels crazy when it works, because I played as an officer and I was listening in on them like, all right, we're flanking around the right, we're going over here, you see an enemy unit behind this thing, and they're taking cover behind the ruined tank. And I was like, am I in World War II now? I'm freaking out. But like, they communicate really well, and they take it super seriously. But like, it's not my game, and I cannot touch it unless I have at least like 3 guys with me. But it is, I'll give them respect for what it is. I think that's the most authentic experience for like anything World War II shooter wise that I've ever seen. So that was what I had with that. And the last thing I wanted to mention briefly was Insurgency Sandstorm. Sounds like a very generic title, but I want to ask either of y'all, did you play the original Rainbow Six game, or maybe like Vegas or something like that?
Yeah, the original Rainbow Six 3 and Vegas. Right.
Okay,
and
Zach,
Vegas
did
2.
you play any of that?
I did not.
Cool. I wouldn't expect you to, but I wanted to just give you that opportunity. This is the Anton Ego moment I had with Ratatouille from it's playing Insurgency Sandstorm, flashing back to the original Rainbow Six. This game blends the concept of like modern first-person shooter aspects and mechanics and heavy tactics. The concept being like there's only 2 things you can do, is either playing against players or playing against AI. And just like how you had like your Rainbow Six Vegas, Alejandro, where you had an area that you had to clear out, you would go like room to room to room, very methodically. That's how the co-op aspect plays out. That's what I played the most. And it's like you get your loadout, you mess with all that stuff. It's not really about progressing or unlocking things, and you have 7 other of your human characters, and you make your way from one point to the next, kind of taking objectives as you go. And it's like just a city, and you have to decide how you approach through these areas, how you clear it out. What you got?
Where do you play this?
I'm playing it on PS5 now. It just came out on console.
Oh, okay.
But
just wanted to know. Yeah.
Right. So it came out for PS4, but with like a couple visual updates on the 5, and then they have it on PC. But anyway, so just the idea of like slowly making your way through. There's no like hit markers when you hit an enemy. Hey, you can die in one shot to the head, a couple shots to the body, and there's friendly fire, obviously, so you can just kill it. All of your teammates on accident if you're not careful. But just the feel of like OG Rainbow Six, picking an operator and moving through like a city or a building or whatever it is, was like a weird nostalgic feel hit my soul in that moment. And I'm very glad I picked it up, and I want to keep playing it all the time. But yeah, so that was just a really cool little surprise that I didn't expect, to have a remembrance to my old days playing that game.
And we barely get those kind of games either way. No.
Never. And they hardly ever survive on console anyway. So the fact that it's like already got a really solid following, both with Hell Let Loose and now Insurgency Sandstorm, it's like a very strange shift to like this more tactical feel of like, as maybe gamers are getting older, the Call of Duties and the Fortnites aren't really doing it for them as much, and they require something a little different. And I think there's more opportunities for that now than ever. And that's
maybe
really
maybe Ghost Recon Frontline will be that kind of hardcore. Nah, it won't.
I don't think it will. I want to believe. But yeah, so that's everything that I've been playing. Alejandro, I know you didn't write down your stuff. What have you been playing?
So I obviously went on that rant over Battlefield 2042, so I don't need to reiterate that. To do my due diligence to follow up over last week's divisive discussion over this particular demo. Before it was removed, I went back to the Stranger of Paradise demo and put it in the difficulty that you play it. I will say this. You do have a point about the enemies taking maybe a little too much to just constantly wail at them, but this is where it clicked for me. This is a Final Fantasy game where you have to consider everything with every enemy that you fight, and you're not supposed to play it like that meatball. That's what the casual story difficulty that I told you to play it for, to play it on.
You told me that after I'd already picked action, which I would assume action means I'm going to be focusing on the action, you know?
And I will say this, as a feedback for them, they should rename that. Because that's the thing, this is a Final Fantasy game, but it's also Souls-like. You're not supposed to play it as an action game. This is supposed to be very methodical with everything you have at your disposal,
which is not at all what you think when you look at every part of this game.
No, not at all. But then like the way that I went back and I remember how combat was in Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you're just wailing at enemies, pressing square, their health goes so low, it doesn't feel satisfying. But then when you mix it with the combos that you fill up with your AP, in this case the purple thing was AP, that's when you would do the combos that you can actually set up. I had this amazing R1, R2 combo that was like two slash and then jumps hard and slams it like it was Cloud. That's how I wail a bunch of enemies in this difficulty. The fireballs, you do the whole circle thing, and by the way, you can always hold circle as long as you have your meter at the bottom fill up. And like, as long as it's not empty, you can always be holding circle. When you hit something, you're not gonna lose health. You're only gonna lose health if you get hit when you do this, because you always do like a weird movement. You throw the fireballs back to the fireballs to overfill them. It like you use kind of like that logic of like, it wouldn't make sense to throw fireballs to them, but no, in this game it does, because it's not about damaging, it's about filling their stagger. So you can just go there and do the classic mega punch that it's such a meme with this with Jack the character. And Chaos was hard, I'll give you that. Like Chaos was really tough, but I still beat it. And then it made me realize, it's like if you play this game in the action difficulty, you have to play it thinking about it as a Final Fantasy game. If you just want to wail at enemies, you play it on casual. I hate that you didn't play this on casual, because that's what I played it on. And you brought all this idea of everything that I played in that easy difficulty, that then when none of that popped up in normal, that's where you struggle. But it kind of helped me. It was good that you had that experience, because it made me approach it in a more methodical level, and how important it is for you to be a mage and have that close, because you have all the magics available to you. So yeah, Paul, you suck at games.
I guess so.
I was about to say, this is just Alejandro calling Paul a casual.
Yeah,
it was a very long, several week process of him breaking me down, finally saying, "Pull away."
But because I put the two and two together with your experience with hard difficulty God of War, and then I realized that it's like you are the
worst gamer.
Not worst player. You're the kind of gamer that is like, don't think much about the strategy. You're just about trying to kill enemies as quick as possible. And if the time to kill is not that, then you're struggling, because like I mentioned with God of War, it's like you need to be more strategic with either you're using your axe for this enemy, or just put it in your hands, or using your boy. So just keep that in mind. And if you just want to wail, just be accepted and put it on easier difficulty, if that's how you want to play it.
Yeah.
It was almost condescending.
I would say that is slander, sir. I played Disco Elysium, thank you very much.
Yeah.
A game
with
I
no
never
combat.
haven't touched. But I agree for the most part. I think I can be strategic, but I think I need to trick my brain into it from the start.
You have to know what you're going into. You have to know that that's the kind of game that you're going into.
I can't be advertised as this heavy action DMC like game, and then they say, oh no, you've got to like manage all of your equipment, your MP, and all of the little details of things if you're going to even stand a chance on the normal difficulty. So if I had known that going into it, I probably would have treated it a lot differently. And I would have probably started off with like, all right, we're going to manage our stuff, we're going to get this right, we're going to keep things together, and it's going to go great. And I probably would have burned through it. But
I will say this, even having played on action thing, if I get that game, I'm playing on casual. I'm still playing it that way, because I've mentioned before,
feels like it's meant to be like that.
Especially the way the character presents itself as this badass mofo. Like, you want to play it as someone that's just gonna, like, of course you're gonna keep saying, I'm here to kill chaos, I only have one thing, I only know one thing, I'm gonna kill chaos, I'm here in the shrine of chaos. Like, you think of that, I was like, yeah, you just want this dude to be wailing like a hunter.
He sounds like a meathead.
Yeah.
He looks like a meathead. He acts like a meathead. He literally hears a Kingdom Hearts description of a character, and then he says BS and plays Linkin Park. Like, that is the most, I am going to ignore all strategy and just beat things up. So, like, that's almost like, I know the phrase gets thrown around a lot, but the idea of ludonarrative dissonance, where
it's heavy in this one.
Games set you up in a certain way to play based on the character, because like in the end you're supposed to try playing as the character, but then when they say all of that and then they give you the mechanics of like a city builder practically, then it just feels a little weird. I know I'm being a little dramatic about it,
but you have a point. There is that little narrative dissonance with the way that character is portrayed as what he wants to do versus the kind of game they expect you to play at its like base normal difficulty. So like from that perspective, I get it. But it's about it's also when you get it, you kind of have to like shift and be like, okay, let's try some stuff. It feels like you kept trying playing it that way and didn't quite grasp it.
I guess it's like I was trying to play God of War, but instead it was Dragon Age Inquisition. And I think that's actually a better description of how the combat is. Like, there's a little bit more to it. Oh, okay, we're good. I thought I lost you for a sec.
Oh no.
But yeah, so I think if like I said, if people understand that process, I think it would work out a little better for that. Did you play anything else?
I've been like, as a personal project, I have been playing through all the Call of Duties campaigns again, because I want.
Did you want to talk at all about that experience, or did you want to wait?
I want to save it. I kind of want to save it, because I love to for that eventually, whenever I'm done with them, to be a
looking
topic.
forward to that.
Yeah, and just kind of discuss it. I would say that the last one I just finished is Black Ops 3, so I'm now into Infinite Warfare. So having finished already Modern Warfare 2019 and Black Ops Cold War this year again, I only have 2 more left, Infinite and World War 2, and then I'm gonna compile a list of those. I will say some games are better than I remember, some a little worse, and I can't wait to discuss more. But Paul, that's all I've been playing. So.
And that's all I've been playing, and that's all Zach's been playing. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for all this. If you are listening to the segmented portion of this, we'll be switching over to the topic right now.
Yes.
And for any of you that have not been finished, we now have our topic to discuss. Gentlemen,
so quick. So this means that we're gonna post all 3 separate now.
I threw that in there just in case.
Okay,
but
let's go.
That was just in case this goes on for a while. But keep in mind, you can answer this as long or short as you feel.
Yes.
The topic for today, gentlemen, is to first think of a friend that you know that you're very close to who is not into games right now. Think of it for a second. Now, picture that person. What game would you have them play in order to get them into gaming, and why? Think about it for a second. I'm going to go first while y'all kind of do that, just to give you an idea. And this can, there's no real wrong answers for this. It can be any sort of type of person and a game specifically for them for a specific reason. That's kind of what I'm going for. For me, I would probably pick my friend Chase. He is a very round and lovely person that plays a lot of music, no gaming whatsoever. I think I could get him to play something like Breath of the Wild in a very slow process, allowing him to like get the vibe of it, or something like Abzu or Journey. And that's kind of why I would think of those two. Did anything y'all have yet?
Yes, my friend JJ, he has slowly started trying to get into games, but I would like him to get into something deeper, as trying to get into the moment of knowing how controls work. And I think a game that slowly teaches you things are Telltale games. Like I would have him play Telltale The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Just as a way to like get immersed in a story while slowly getting into grasp of how some controls work, because obviously that game doesn't require too much like double stick movement, and trying to get a hang of double stick is probably the biggest hurdle for some of modern gaming. Like some people have to either be doing moving one stick, stop, move the other one. It's like we are at the point where we can grab a controller and do both sticks at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's like that comes as that's second nature to us. So I feel those kind of games that don't require that kind of movement would be good ones to do, and then maybe move into maybe a platformer like Crash Bandicoot that doesn't have like right stick movement at all. But I will have him play Crash 2, because Crash Bandicoot 1 is a hell of a tough game, and I wouldn't want to put anyone through that. So
that's fair.
So Crash and Telltale The Walking Dead would be mine to kind of slowly start immersing them. Breath of the Wild, I admire your Breath of the Wild, but also remember Breath of the Wild is a tough game.
As soon as I said it, I realized I'm gonna need to definitely step back from something like that. And that's where I said Abzu or Journey. That would be a lot better of an answer, because like you can use the right stick, but it's not really required outside of like convenience for those.
Especially in Journey. Journey is like so good at like properly framing itself, and you can obviously like reframe yourself, but it always frames it showing you where to go. And it's art is so evocative. Zach, what about you?
So I can tell you exactly what not game to start them with, and that is Portal 2. Because you think that's a fun game, it's just a puzzle game.
Ooh, no.
And then you realize if you don't know how to use double stick, like Alejandro said, and you don't really know how physics in video games work, it's really confusing for someone's first game.
That game makes you feel like an idiot when you figure it out. Like, I don't know what else.
I struggled with that game too myself. So, all right, well, that's a good preamble. What you got for us then?
So, I don't really play any games that don't use double stick, so I'm gonna have to suggest a game that uses a double stick, and I think It Takes Two is a
Ah.
pretty easy game.
Yeah,
Like it's very forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a straightforward platformer. There's not a whole lot of puzzling, but there's a little bit, and it kind of gets their brain to think how video game puzzles work. And also, you get to see their reaction to all the dark, crazy things that happen in that game.
Yeah, because you play as co-op. Like that would be a thing. Like you would take someone that doesn't play games and you play it with them, and you're kind of with them also as they go through that. So
that's actually exactly what happened to me with we haven't finished it yet, but we've been working through It Takes Two as well. And one of the things that we struggled with the most was the toolbox boss, where you have to, one of you has to throw the nails into the wooden arms when it swings its arm down, and the other one has to use the hammer to swing along those nails to do damage to it. And of course, like, you need to have some solid coordination for both of y'all, but I think that one of the characters requires less of it than the other. I think it's usually the girl, but then like sometimes she requires it as well, but it like pushes them enough to teach those, like Zach was saying, fundamentals of gaming, where both like puzzles, platforming, and action, to understand what kind of buttons are used whenever you're doing certain things. And then like it doesn't really require the right stick all that much, because most of whatever you're doing is like in the direction you're moving, and then if you kind of move the other direction, it'll kind of start to like shift you anyway. And it's zoomed out enough that it's not like going to kill you most of the time if you don't do that.
I want to add two more games for that I would give to someone. Mario 64 and Super Mario Galaxy. Two games that their cameras are like always super framed in a specific way. Yeah. And the only adjustment you can do is just a tap of the thing. So no need to always kind of, like, I wouldn't recommend Mario Sunshine because that game uses the camera a lot, and the camera of that game is a mess. It is. So those two games I think are so good at that, of like just giving you the scenario that in a very specific frame. So yeah, those would be my games.
Another I'm popping up with would be Little Nightmares, Limbo, or Inside. If you really want like the creepy factor, especially since we're in Halloween time, those three are like all 2D platformers, usually pretty good with like only giving you one puzzle at a time to kind of solve, and they're just master classes of atmosphere. And even if you die in certain things, it's usually not too difficult to figure out what they want you to do. So I think I would add those to the list as well, depending on the person. But yeah, so y'all have any other suggestions? But besides that, it's pretty much it.
I haven't tested this, but I heard that if you play Spider-Man with all the accessibility options like turned on, it's a really good way to immerse yourself in a bigger budget kind of game. I've heard many people love using accessibility for that one. So
I kind of want to look into that out of curiosity than anything else, just because I want to see what that would do. I don't think I would suggest Last of Us 2 simply because of what
that game's a mess. Yeah, exactly.
I love the accessibility that it does do. So I do hope that it just continues with cascading effect of like other companies saying, hey, we're going to also give these opportunities for people. And I've loved it. Like, even just instead of mashing the button, I can like hold it or just tap it once and not get shamed, because sometimes carpal tunnel's a thing, and I don't want to destroy my wrists.
Yeah.
But in the end, gentlemen, that is the end of my topic. I appreciate you indulging me in that, and I feel like that's one of the questions that if you sit around for long enough, we could just keep coming up with more and more suggestions, and it just continues cascading into more discussion. But I think we're good for that. So Alejandro, Zach, the boy wonder, and the single greatest inspiration for Lady Gaga I can think of, I appreciate y'all joining me for this episode that I am absolutely in charge of for one reason, and that's because I'm amazing.
Okay.
Gentlemen, it's been great talking to y'all.
Yeah, it's the same to you. And hopefully, Zach, you can come in next week also, because we might have another guy come in for what his experience was with Metroid, which I still haven't played. So
me neither.
And
Same.
yeah, so at least there should be someone that at least we know has played it and has something to say
Yeah.
about it, because I'm waiting until a little later to get that one, which I've just heard nothing but good praises for. So
Which reminds me, actually, gentlemen, where can they find you on social media? Zach, let's go with you first.
Okay, I'm Zachity on everything. That's Zachithy.
very easy.
All right. And Alejandro, where do they find you?
They can find me on twitch.tv/theslayergiant, where you can watch live when we play through the Halo series. That then those playthroughs are uploaded at XCape Media YouTube. Then you can also find me at _Dorsegovia on Twitter, Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, and my written content at thecriticalcorner.com.
And as always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on YouTube and Twitter, and Angel Sword 21 on Twitch. However, you will most likely be seeing me on the XCape Media channel alongside this dude over here getting shot in the back of the head for laughs.
Yes, or getting just meleeed, just to
getting
grab
meleeed, getting shot by a scorpion, taking my shotgun and running up an elevator with it so I can't go back. There's going to be memes about that one day when we're famous. It's going to be Paul pining after his shotgun all the time. So, as always, everybody, thank y'all for joining us, and I hope to see y'all next time. And press X
to play.
Good night, everyone. Adios.
Good night.